This is Spare Time Repair, and this is a Technics SL-P300 compact disc player. This channel isn't exclusively for vintage CD players, but I have had a run of them recently, and this one hails from 1986. It powers on, but after attempting to read a disc, the tray opens by itself. Insert a disc and it fails to read it before spitting it back out. In fact, the only way to keep the tray closed is to turn off the power before it gets the chance to open again. On the bottom of the player is a toggle switch to lock the mechanism for transportation, along with a label promising severe damage if this isn't done. This has the potential to be my best find yet, but will it be a simple fix? This is certainly the cleanest of the CD players I've found recently. It wouldn't need too much in the way of restoration, and I'm wondering if the problem is something as simple as a micro switch. Like it's just not sensing that the tray is closed, and so it's not reading the disc. The case is quite tight. Well, there's less going on in here than I was expecting. I mean, it's pretty heavy, but yeah, the other players of this vintage have had much larger motherboards. It's got a metal tray base, which I've never seen before. So here's one micro switch, and you can see this micro switch being pushed in, but it doesn't have much travel. I'm going to test that quickly before we do any more disassembly. I'm curious about that locking mechanism though. It's sort of directly under here. We do have another micro switch at the end here, and that one's more likely to be responsible, but I can't test that until I remove this disc clamp. So I guess to do that I need to remove this screw. There's a spring on the back here. I think that spring was actually glued on. There's a bit of residue left on the top. So I'll test this switch as well. I'm going to use different probes. Yeah, no problem with that. This is a very interesting sled assembly. We've got this coil and these two huge magnets. And if you look down here, there's a brushless spindle motor. Very nice. I'm going to press that toggle switch at the bottom now. So now it's locked. Yeah. And that sled doesn't move at all now. I think it's just locking that rat gear. I'm not sure it would cause that much damage if you didn't lock it. Well, if it's not a problem with the micro switches, is there an issue with the laser itself? I've got it plugged in and I'm going to look at it through my phone's camera. So let's close the tray. Yeah, that's a worry. Doesn't look like any sign of life from that laser at all. I mean, it's very dirty, but if it's not even firing up, then it doesn't matter how dirty it is. But then the spindle motor didn't seem to fire up either, so perhaps there's just a power supply problem. There is a service manual for this online, so I'm going to have a look at that and see if I can probe some voltages. Well, something's definitely off, because when you insert a disc, the whole mechanism should come up. Like the tray spindle needs to raise to go through the disc. And it's just staying there. So maybe the laser doesn't fire until it's in the proper playing position. And in that case, there's not necessarily anything wrong with the laser. I just need to figure out why it's not lifting up. Yeah, looks like removing the tray is as simple as just unhooking these two clips. Well, there are multiple fractures in this plastic. You see all these cracks? Here as well. But the tray was still working, so I don't think that's actually a problem. Nothing actually feels loose. So according to the service manual, we should have plus 11.4 volts coming out of here. That's okay. And negative 11.4 here. Well, that's probably near enough. And then on the main board, this test point here should be negative 12. And the one next to it, plus 12. So I don't think there's a problem with the power supply. Power's obviously getting to the front panel as well for the display. It's just the optical assembly that seems to have the issue. I've just removed the screws for the front panel that were in the base. That gives me a little bit of leeway. These cables are stopping it moving too freely. Just going to remove this linkage arm to the power switch. It's not moving. Are there screws underneath? Well, no screws going up from the bottom. I think it's this one. I think this whole unit is keyed in place, so it has to slide forward before it can slide up. But I think I'm going to disconnect this front panel just to give myself more room. So I'm going to label these ribbon cables up. Well, they don't release very well. I wouldn't want to have to do that very often. Okay, front panel is free, so will this now slide forward? Aha. I've just unscrewed the board for the brushless motor. So I was going to check the voltages for that. So this should be negative 7.6. Looks good. This should be negative 5. It's a bit of drift. 7.8. Negative 7.5. And 7.8 again. So that seems to be okay. I was just triggering these micro switches manually, and there is life in the laser. Okay, so you trigger this motor, and then this one, and there we go. We have a laser beam. So why wasn't that working when the tray was attached? No, I just made a discovery. I thought the laser and spindle lifted up when the disc was inserted, but it doesn't. This whole part drops down. There's a catch in here. So maybe it's not that the micro switch is faulty. The tray just might not be activating it because something's broken off maybe. I mean, with all these cracks in the plastic, it wouldn't be surprising. But I think it's this piece here that activates it. If we sit it roughly in position, I mean, there it's some way off it. But once this has moved forward and the tray has dropped down, yeah, then that bit activates the micro switch. So maybe it's not doing that. Maybe it's not dropping down. Well, it's one way to find out, I suppose. Do you know what? I think it might be this belt. This belt is quite slack. It's obviously enough to take the disc in. But then I think it needs more force, because if I turn it manually, then the tray drops down. I don't think it's got enough torque to drop it down. Could it be that simple? I just discounted the belt because obviously the tray was working. So if I turn this manually, you can see there's quite a bit of play there. Well, I'll be very happy if that's all it is. And it's very easy to change as well. Yeah, there's not much give in that. It's quite a thick belt. I don't have one that thick. But this one's a fair bit smaller. That feels a lot better. I didn't really need to number these cables, did I? In fact, before I reconnect this, I might remove the board and give it a good clean, because I don't want to have to disconnect them again. I think I'm just going to gamble that it was that belt and that it will now work. And to get this PCB out, I think I need to remove this metal rod, which is there for strengthening. I'll be so happy if this CD player works. There's definitely a lesson here about checking the basics first. I could have spent hours probing the PCBs for voltages and testing components. Just checking these buttons, and some of them are really dodgy. Like you have to press this one quite hard. And even then there's a lot of resistance. But they're slightly unusual ones. They've got a fifth leg that comes off the side. So I'm just going to give them a spray with contact cleaner and hope that does the job. Let's try that again. This was the problematic one. Well, it's better than it was. If I keep working them, I think they should be okay. Well, annoyingly, this front lens has 2 layers and the water got between them, and so I'm not sure that's going to dry up very well. I need to clean the lens and the spindle platter. Looks like there was some sort of rubberized coating on here. It's gone kind of hard and crusty, but hopefully it'll still do the job. Just using some glass cleaner on the lens. I saw somewhere that it might not be a good idea to use alcohol, because these lenses tend to be plastic rather than glass. I think it's the smallest lens I've ever seen. Well, it's still not super clean, but I think I'll wait and see if it's a problem before I go any further. I'm going to be impatient and connect the front board as it is, because I think I can still screw it into the front panel afterwards. Because there are so many parts to this tray, I'm just going to do it with a wet wipe. I don't think there's much value in disassembling it all. And to test, I'll need to reinstall the disc clamp. Looks like there was a foam pad on the top here that's sort of disintegrated now, but not sure why there needed to be a pad on there. It's actually pretty hard to get this spring back on. Perhaps it was stuck on there so that you hook it onto the bottom afterwards. When it's on, that was a nightmare. Well, it was ready for testing, and so I turned it on, and it came to life briefly, and now it's dead. And I think what happened is that this transport wasn't in its correct location, and I think something on the bottom here has shorted against the bottom case, and now something has blown and it won't power on at all. And if you watched my video recently about the TX CD player, you'll know the exact same thing happened there. So to say I'm frustrated is an understatement. So before I go any further, I'm going to put something underneath here to make sure that doesn't happen again. But now I've got a worse fault than I had originally. I printed out the troubleshooting section of the manual. So it's saying check the voltage terminals. Well, I better plug it in first. Check the voltages of D1, which is here. So we have 18 positive and 18 negative. D2, 12 positive, 12 negative. The trouble with this is that it keeps asking me to check IC1, BTI, Q13, and it's taking forever to find where those actually are. But I guess we're just sort of working across the board. So BTI is this one. So we've got 23 negative. There's a test jumper here where we have 12 volts. I'm going to have to remove this main PCB in order to test some of the things on the other side of the board. When I've unscrewed the main PCB and propped it up, I'm maintaining the ground connections with these alligator leads and just working through the checklist. And these are all okay, but I got to here and it says check the 7.8 volt power supply. Check the emitter voltages of Q11 and Q12. Well, for this player, anything with a Q is a transistor. So I checked Q11 and Q12 and they were only giving me 1 volt. And presumably they should be giving me the 7.8. If no, then Q11 and 12 defective, or D11 and 12. Now D11 and 12 are Zener diodes. So I've removed Q11 and 12. This is Q11. I wrote on it in pencil because they're both different. And that appears to be fine. And same with Q12. So it must be D11 or 12 that are defective. I hope so, because if they're not, I'm going to be completely lost. Thankfully, everything is labelled on both sides of the board, so it's quite easy to identify the parts I need. So here is D11, and it's even got a little diode symbol. And D12 is here. I mean, it looks like a resistor to me, but apparently it's a Zener diode. So hopefully it says something bad. Yes, that's exciting. Yeah, they both appear to be gone. Just going to check them with a multimeter as well. 0.726. Well, to me that's testing okay. They both are. So why didn't the multifunction tester pick it up? Perhaps I had it in the wrong slot. Yeah, I did. The Zener diode test area is the bottom left here. This is very bad news. Yeah. So I've lost my 7.8 volt rail and I've got no idea why. I think I may have found the problem. These two components were labelled IC4 and IC5, and in the manual they're shown as integrated controllers. But looking at the schematic, they both appear to be fuses, which would make sense because they've got the high voltage warning symbol next to them. And if I hook it up to the multimeter, it's testing open. So's the other one. Anyway, I'm going to refit these other components and see how quickly I can get hold of some of these fuses. I've soldered the transistors and the Zener diodes back in place, but these fuses are a bit of a problem. They're both labelled F15Y or possibly FI5Y, but I can't find any information about them online. I mean, I'm assuming they're fuses. Here they are on the schematic, and that's a fuse symbol, right? But the manual doesn't say what their value is, so I don't know what to replace them with. So what I've done instead, they go here on IC4 and IC5, and I've just soldered in a couple of resistor legs, and I'm thinking for the purposes of testing I should just short those together until I can find a suitable replacement. I know it's bad practice, but I don't know what else I can do. And if the player comes to life, then at least I know I've isolated the problem. So I've just bridged across those leads with short pieces of wire for now. So I'm going to plug it back in, and when I turn it on I'm just hoping for some show of life on the display. Oh, Phew. Well, they obviously were fuses, so now I'm going to reinstall the tray and test it properly. Right, tray's back in place, so we're plugged in again. Will it read the disk? Oh, amazing. And we appear to have playback. That is such a relief. I'm so happy. Fantastic. So let's get this thing fully reassembled. I haven't forgotten about those fuses. I'm going to see if I can find some information and order something, but I deliberately fitted those long resistor legs to the board so that I could easily fit a fuse afterwards without having to remove the PCB again. But for now, I just want to hook this up to the amp and see how it sounds. Oh, and incidentally, after being left overnight, that front panel lens has dried up okay. I almost forgot to refit the linkage arm for the power button. Always frustrating when you screw it together and then find you've forgotten that. So we're fully reassembled now and it's cleaned up nicely. It's just a couple of scratches on the top lid, so I may give that a respray at some point. So we're connected to the amp now. It reads it lightning quick. Very impressed with that. Just turn that down a bit. But the big test for me, will it return to the table of contents when I press stop? Oh, what a joy that is. If you've seen my other videos, you'll know that's been a problem for me recently, but not for the Technics. And the time mode cycles through the remaining time of the track and the album, as you would expect. I'm really happy with this. The only slight nitpick I have is that there's a relay inside that seems to kick in every time I skip or press play. It just makes a little clicky noise. I'll hold the microphone over it, and then when I skip forward, I wonder if it's something to do with the direct drive spindle motor. So obviously I need to fit the tray front as well. And this FF apparently stands for fine focus. Let's see again just how quickly it reads that table of contents. I don't know, it feels pretty good to me. Final test is, will it read a CDR? It's read it. Will it play it? No, it doesn't like that. Going to try a different one because the other one is so old it might have bit rot or something. Yeah, it's playing that one okay. I mean, this was a really cheap disc, Mr. Data, probably just degenerated. So yeah, this ticks every box for me. I absolutely love it. I like how it looks. I like the fact that it's so slimline. I love how fast it reads the discs. I like the display. I just have no complaints at all. But I would be interested if anyone's got any suggestions regarding those fuses. What would be a good value to put in their place? So yeah, I certainly made this repair harder than it needed to be, but hopefully it was enjoyable anyway. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.